Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you're here for the Apantac Intel webinar, Cleaner, Simpler Display Installations with the SDM platform. You are in the right place if you want to find out exactly what an SDM interface is, exactly which signals and formats are supported, and get some real-life examples of SDM installations. And we're going to have QA time at the end, questions and answers at the end, so you can use the chat for all of that. I'm Cindy Zulsdorf, and I'm here today with two colleagues. First, let's say hello to Thomas Tang, founder and president at Apantac. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, how's it going, Cindy?
Good to see you. So good to see you. And can I introduce Jean-Michele Vuillamy, systems architect, FPGA acceleration and virtualization at Intel. Welcome, Jean-Michele.
Hey, hello, glad to be here.
So glad you are here. All right, well, let's get right into it. Jean-Michele, tell us, what does SDM mean? What is it? And give us an introduction, if you will.
Yes, thank you, Cindy. Can you pull the slide on, please?
Will do.
So let me give you a quick intro on Intel SDM. First, I will share my perspective on the evolution of the Intel display specification. Cindy, yeah. So if you look at the evolution of Intel display specifications, let me start around 2010, when the open pluggable specification was introduced. At that time, the display market began to move towards modularization and standardization. And the idea was to scale and reduce the display development cost. So Intel contributed to various specs, OPS, OPS-C for China, and other derivatives, and they all supported top to bottom of Intel processors. Okay. Then, to provide further technology leadership and to meet stricter standardization, Intel launched the Intel SDM specification with two form factors, SDM-L, L for large, and SDM-S, S for small. Actually, you will see some pictures later on about those form factors. By the way, for those who don't know, SDM stands for Smart Display Module. And the goal with Intel SDM was, and still is, to provide interoperability and scalability to the market, especially the ecosystem partners. So now, SDM usage has been expanding to support more interfaces such as UHD, HDBaseT, SDVOE, SDI, and NDI, thanks to our leading partner, namely Apantac. It does not stop here, as Intel continues to invest and lead in forward-looking technology such as 8K display, 5G, Wi-Fi 6, and FPGA with SDN specifications. Okay, so we've gone through the history and the perspective. So next slide, please. So this slide highlights the main benefits or attributes of the Intel SDM specification. I'd like to focus on two items here. The others have been covered previously. The first point is that the Intel SDM specification has become Intel's catalyst to drive future display technology and to maintain a long-term and robust roadmap. The second point is that the Intel SDM specification has entered the so-called product lifecycle phase called the growth phase, which emphasizes on market and product usage expansion into broader integration. So for example, an SDM-S, which is a smaller one on the right-hand side, SDM-S has the size of a credit card and has received a positive demand in flat panel displays. It's also been considered for smart projector usage. Obviously, with Apantac, SDM is also making its way and is growing stronger in the AV and broadcast market. There are also opportunities to explore new business, for example, in the domain of the video wall market, which is also growing rapidly. So this is pretty much it in terms of my Intel SDM introduction. Back to you, Cindy.
Thank you for talking about the SDMs. And it was so interesting to hear about the small ones that are credit card sized. That was great to know about, and makes complete sense about the video wall applications and broadcast applications. We're actually going to get into some applications at the end, which will be great. Thomas, can you tell us more about the Apantac role and what you're doing with SDMs?
Sure. So as Jean-Michele was talking about, the evolution to SDM, and we were actually part of that evolution. We were originally a partner of OPS. So we made products in the OPS platform, and as the world moved to 4K, and we started adapting to SDM. So the first thing we did was to take some of our products that we made, on the OPS platform, and move them to a 4K. So as we do that, we did, of course, 12G SDI, UHD. Jean-Michele kind of went through a little bit, our NDI products, SDVOE, and we actually have a full roadmap that's surrounded by SDM.
That's great to know. And how do you feel about digging into some of the applications and use cases?
Sure. So the easiest application right now is video wall. We talked about video wall, right? So when you put up a complicated digital signage video wall, there are panels everywhere. The last thing you want to do is to put a converter next to every panel. So you have a converter to the panel, you have that wall wart to power the converter, then power the converter, then you have to have a cable into the converter and cable out of the converter, right? So we took all that away. One of the ways that people thought about doing that before SDM was, let's do PoE. Well, PoE has its own problems. Of course, to power a panel on PoE, it's a lot of power. So what we did is now we put everything in the SDM. Now SDM slides cleanly into the display and uses, there you go, that's an SDM-L. Actually, in a previous webinar I did, I held in front of my face and it looks huge, but it actually is size of 2 credit cards. So yeah, I went back and looked at my own webinar. I was like, it was only this big, but it covered my entire face, but that's not that big. Anyway, so there's an L and an S. And so what we did is once we put that into the display can give us some smarts. Displays would know how much power it's drawing, how much fan it needs to turn on, and all these, all the smarts of the display and the stability. Of course, the power inside the display is a lot more stable than a 5 volt, 12 volt wall wart. So that's, when you're troubleshooting, you don't have to dig through all the wall warts. And another thing is when you're building a big wall, mean time between failure is very, very important, right? So the less components you have, the less chance of failure. So that's a very easy one to talk about.
That's a great application, and I can definitely remember being that person digging through buckets of wall warts and looking for the one that, I needed for some particular application. So if you can get rid of that, and then all the support that you talked about, the 12G SDI and the, just all the NDI, all the different formats it can support, that makes so much sense for the video wall application. You also talked about rental and staging as a way to really use this technology and benefit from this technology.
Yeah, so rental is staging, a couple of different ways. In a rental environment, you don't really have to stock your SDI displays, your NDI displays, your AV over IP display, all this different types of displays. All you have to have a bunch of different cards and just one type of display, the SDM type of display, right? So makes everything about rental is keeping the inventory down, and of course, rent it as often as you can, right? So it's a great application in rental. Well, in staging, the staging is, again, you want reliability. You want to plug as many little things as little as you can. So when you have a display that takes takes the form and the signal directly in without any conversion, right? That really cleans up the entire installation. And with Broadway coming back, with all the shows coming back, life going back to normal. Yeah, so all the rental and staging companies are now really into getting the SDMs.
Right. Everybody's on fire with Broadway and shows and concerts coming back. And so how about the concerts and live tours? Have you had any big concert names calling you up or something like that? You got to get on the road again and need to use the SDM technology to make the show better.
I mentioned this specific one, right? But we're working with them all the time. That it's funny because somebody actually called and goes, "Can I just get a display that I could just plug directly in without having all these converters?" I say, "Oh yeah." So that was the easy one for me to really push for SDM.
That makes so much sense. I can imagine someone phoning up and wanting a monitor where they can plug everything in and not deal with all the different, bunches of cables and power supplies and all the different things. It's going to make their lives so much better.
Yeah, and guys like that actually drives our roadmap. We listen to them, right? What do they need? And a lot of our roadmap is driven by our customers. With a great platform like SDM, we really got a lot going on there.
Yeah, you are good at that, listening to your customers and making your product decisions and upgrades and changes based on what people really need and phone up and ask for. I love that.
Yeah, it's better than sitting at home thinking about it yourself. So
we're taking 2 years to make the decision and then finally rolling out the product, but a bit late. Like, your responsiveness is so notable.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things you talked about when we were getting ready for this call is NDI and how it's kind of a special case. And there's a lot of interest around NDI and using that right now.
Well, so NDI, the guys at NDI have done a great job of marketing, right? They've also done a great job of really putting NDI everywhere. So the connectivity of NDI is they've really kind of taken over on the AV over IP, whether in the broadcast environment or the digital signage environment. There's two types of NDI. There's the NDI HX, which is the high efficiency, and there's the high bandwidth. Right now, we work with the high bandwidth because most of our customers are in the production environment, so they need the higher bandwidth for that. And the way we deal with NDI is a little bit different than everybody else, because NDI you could actually just run it on a PC. But what we're doing is we're providing the reliability of doing it completely in hardware. So we use an Intel FPGA. We do all the decoding in hardware, and of course, by doing that, we also the FPGA is very powerful. Leave some room left in there so we could do a lot more. We could expand to it.
So you also mentioned about Zoom rooms and Zoom recordings, and here we are on Zoom. And are you seeing some need for this technology in Zoom applications?
So a lot of the Zoom studios are popping up, and there are some permanent studios, and there also are some, of course, NDI also supports Zoom and Teams, right? So there's two types of Zoom applications. Well, there's more than two. I'm sorry. There's what we're doing now. There's the Zoom studios that's permanent. Okay, there's the Zoom studio that actually are rentals. So people will actually call up and say, "Hey, I need to do this Zoom, this Zoom conference, and we want to do a production on that." And people move in a flight pack, so everything's in there. Then again, they'll pull out the monitors, the displays that has an SDM display module in it, right? And then they could do in whatever format the customer wanted to do.
I loved when you were talking about sort of the inside look, the behind the scenes with the event centers that we see social media companies doing. I know there's a lot you can't talk about there, but are there little bits and pieces you can reveal?
So social media companies building these event centers, they're actually really, really cool. Yeah. So you rent a room or you rent a huge space, but it's like a little tiny TV studio attached to every one of them. Depends on the size you want. So of course, there's a big display in there or several displays. And one of the things you need is, they come in and everything's got to work. right? They pay by the second, I'm sure, by the minute. So the last thing you want to do is go through troubleshooting. Oh, something's not coming up. What do I got to do, right? So again, we eliminate all those conversion devices that are external. The extra cables, everything, the extra power supplies, which makes it very easy.
And so some of the other things that we talked about are, you've got future plans maybe for supporting trucks and OB vans, and you've got people using conference rooms right now. So whether it's, 12G SDI or HD-Base-T, SDV, OE, and really NDI, you've got all these different formats you're supporting. I guess we should probably go to questions right now because you've covered all these great applications. Do we have questions that have come in? Of course, if you want to get on a call with the Apantac salespeople, just let us know right here in the chat, and they can get you tech specs, get into your application, your integration, what you need. And then also we've got a link in the chat for you if you want to go to the contact us page on Apantac's website and find out who you should talk to specifically in your area. So let's look and see if there are questions. Let's see. One of them you hit already. What formats do you support in NDI? You kind of talked about that already, but just in case you've got anything to add to it, there's a question around supporting 4K on that.
Yes. So in NDI, we support all the way up to 4K 422. Of course, most of the NDI in 4K is still 420. So we support both. It is seamlessly switch. And of course, 1080p and so on. So that's an easy one. And actually, that's also the beauty of doing it in an FPGA, right? So.
Yes. Got flexibility of using an FPGA.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nice. Okay. If you have other questions, pop them in the chat. Otherwise, we want to thank you for being here today, and you got to learn what an SDM is, about all the formats it supports, and maybe an installation or project that you have. You heard Thomas talk about something that might resonate with you. So let us know if you want to get together with one of the Apantac folks, and we'll help you with specs, pricing, and all that good stuff.
And demo units.
Demo units. You have demo units.
Yeah, every one of these ones I talk about are in production. So
wonderful. All right. Well, thank you, Jean-Michele. Thank you, Thomas. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Well,
thank you.